Jai Hind, Brigadier Hemant Mahajan. Subject today is Dalai Lama's 87th birthday and Chinese attempt to take over the spiritual leadership of the Tibetan people. Dalai Lama turns 87 on 6th of July. It's a very important event in the Tibetan calendar. 14th Dalai Lama is also called as Tenzin Gyatso, who will turn 87 on July 6, and for last 6 decades he has been living in India, and he calls himself son of India, somebody who has lived longest in India as a guest. The Dalai Lama's birthday is celebrated as a grand event by the Tibetan community. In Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama lives, thousands of people from across the globe reach there for part of birthday celebrations. Last 2 years, the birthday could not be celebrated due to the corona restriction, but this time it will be celebrated. The Central Tibetan Administration, dignitaries from Tibetan government in exile, government of Himachal Pradesh, officials from various representatives of government of India, and many eminent global personalities often take part in these festivities. Each year there is a group that comes from Mongolia. People come from all parts of Himalaya, that is Ladakh, Uttarakhand, Arunachal. They perform dances, songs, prayers are held for long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. A cultural program is held for a long time, both morning and in the afternoon, in which representatives of Indo-Tibetan Friendship Society they take part. In Ladakh, there is a place called Shivai Cell, a palace in Leh, where celebrations go for 3-4 days to earmark the Dalai Lama birthday. People come from the border areas, participate in horse races, perform dances. Kargils also hold similar functions in Kargil, Numbra, Zanskar, Leh. Celebrations are also held in Arunachal Pradesh, etc. So his Dalai Lama, since last 2 years, had cancelled his public commitments because of some issues related to health, and instead he has been giving a weekly public talk, discussion with scientists, scholars, etc. Over 60 million people watch these events, and his talks are translated in 14 to 16 various languages. However, it is China who's playing spoilsport. China wants to control the appointment of next Dalai Lama. China has stated that the successor to present Dalai Lama will be decided by China and not by Dalai Lama and people of Tibet. In fact, China has issued a white paper on the selection process saying that they will choose him. If Dalai Lama chooses a follower, he will not be officially recognized. That's what the Chinese say. The Chinese are also upset because the United States will follow Buddhist tradition in choosing Dalai Lama's successor. So therefore, China interferes into activities of selection, etc. The Dalai Lama himself has said that people of Tibet and him will choose its successor, and US Congress has recently passed an Tibetan Policy and Support Act of 2020 to provide diplomatic support to Tibet on all the fronts. However, the Chinese are trying to dilute the cultural and religious identity of Tibetans. That is the key, and the key for this is to control Dalai Lama. So therefore, China wants to appoint next Dalai Lama. Now, Dalai Lama is the spiritual head of Tibet, and until 10 years back, he was also the political head. You are aware now that there is a Tibetan government which exists in exile, and it gets elected at a regular interval. The institution of Dalai Lama goes back to 1400, and it stands on the pillar of reincarnation. That is, Dalai Lama is again born. Tibetans believe that Dalai Lama has a control over his rebirth, and he can choose the body in which he will be reincarnated. The previous Dalai Lama died in 1993. The present Dalai Lama is now there, and China would want to stop this process. Now, also let's look at very briefly the history of Tibet. In 1950, China annexed Tibet and they've been ruling it for last 70 years. The Chinese have been trying to impose itself on Tibet. It has hammered Tibet's unique identity, interfered with Tibetan Buddhism, attacked and destroyed monasteries, pushed propaganda, and it has sent a lot of Han Chinese into these areas. In fact, in the bigger towns of Tibet, the Han Chinese are in minority. Luckily, Tibet is such a cold area that these Han Chinese, most of them at least, go away during severe winters. In any case, as far as the border areas are concerned, small towns or bastis are concerned, there hardly any Han Chinese come because the region is very tough. By controlling Tibet has not been easy for China, and its effort to get the Tibetans on its side has not succeeded. Now Dalai Lama and the exile government has been there for many years. It is located in Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh of North India, and Chinese, however, do not recognize this government. China says they will have the last word. Dalai Lama's website says that person who reincarnates himself as the sole legitimate authority over where and how he will take a birth. So there may be time for succession is will come in a while. However, the succession may not be simple as world may end up with two Dalai Lamas, one picked up by China and one picked up by Dalai Lama and the people of Tibet and the Tibetan government. Now, China views Dalai Lama as a separatist. They feel that they're going to take away Tibet from him, and China has poured billions of dollars in Tibet, tried to improve the infrastructure there. In fact, one would remember that they are establishing quite a few villages on the border where Han Chinese will come and stay, and they have shattered the traditional Tibetan monastic order under the weight of Chinese factories. In fact, the monasteries have been converted into tourist spots. A lot of Chinese control is there. The control of the Chinese over the Tibetan people, be it activists, be it poets, be it anybody, is so much that nobody in Tibet can do anything that they want to do if the Chinese, because the Chinese will catch them should they do something which is against China. So therefore, this is going to be the long-drawn battle. The Tibetans have been fighting a battle for a long time to have at least a spiritual freedom. The Dalai Lama has said that they possibly do not want an independence from China, but what they want is a spiritual freedom. But even that is not likely to be there. The Chinese laws and the regulations are applicable. They have stopped religious rituals. They have stopped historical conventions. And China says that Buddhism is actually an ancient Chinese religion, and Tibetan will be jailed should they hang photograph of Dalai Lama on their walls. In fact, in 1995, China detained a 6-year-old Tibetan boy who was recognized as a reincarnation of Panchen Lama. The boy has not been ever since then, and China wants to name his replacement and now wants to do the same thing with Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama knows the Chinese plan, and he said it is him and nobody else will, let's say, decide upon his successor. But he, however, understands that two Dalai Lamas is more likely in the days to come. What is the stand of our country in this? Our country, our leadership regularly goes and meets Dalai Lama. We have given him asylum in our country. We help the Tibetans to stay in India. Lakhs of them are staying here. We keep on taking up their cause in various forums, etc. So India supports independence for Tibet, etc. But India doesn't say it openly. Presently, it follows what is called as One China policy. But however, should we change this policy in the days to come? Yes, definitely there is a case for doing it. One would remember that India has created special forces made up of Tibetans in exile. They are called Special Frontier Force, and their occupying strategic heights in Ladakh on the Pangangso Lake has been publicized quite well. Will India play its Tibetan card more openly? Will other countries support the Tibetans more openly? Will they stand up for the rights of 6 million Buddhists who are living in Tibet? Well, these questions have, if you look at the past, while everybody has been giving some kind of a consolatory messages saying ki we support Tibet, etc., but nobody wants to get on the wrong side of China, and therefore they are not supporting the Tibetan independent movement openly. In fact, the Tibetan youth itself has been carrying out an act of self-immolation against the Chinese atrocities that are committed. Chinese have almost changed the face of Tibet. But while this is going on, but there's always a there's always a Tibetan belief that the Tibetan people are very strong and they will continue to fight against China spiritually or maybe even physically. They feel that their stamina will last the stamina of China, and they feel China one day will lose and Tibetans will become independent. In fact, they feel that instead of Tibet becoming a part of China, China will become a part of Tibet. So the Tibetans have a good hope. The Tibetans are there in large number in our country. Now they're spread out over in 100 countries from where they carry out information, provide correct information to the world, but nobody is willing to support them physically. So let us hope that Dalai Lama and the dream of Tibetans comes true. Someday Tibet will become independent and the Tibetans will be able to lead a life the way they want to. Till then, however, this is going to be a long haul, and I'm sure the Tibetans will fight for their cause in the days to come. Let us hope that India also changes its policy of One China and starts supporting Tibetans and Dalai Lama openly. Jai Hind.